Hello everyone. We are going to talk today about prepositions, direct objects and indirect objects, and diagramming those, and principal parts of the verb. So first let's talk a little bit about prepositions, and I'm going to put these handouts on Google Classroom. If you were in class last year, you should have these or something similar to them in your binder. But if you are not, you'll want to print these out and put them in the grammar notes section of your binder. So a preposition is a word that connects, it shows the relationship, not connects, it shows the relationship between two words in the sentence. So, like the sentence, I jumped off the swing. Preposition in the sentence I jumped off the swing is off. Off connects, shows, not connects, conjunctions connect, shows the relationship between jumped and swing. Jumped off swing. Jumped off swing. A preposition shows the relationship between two words in the sentence. I jumped off the swing. Then let's look at this sentence. I went to school. I went to school. The preposition is to. It shows for the relationship between went and school. Went to school. Now, if you're not sure if a word is a preposition, it's a part of speech. Now, remember, there are words that can be more than one part of speech depending on how they're used in the sentence. But in a sentence, a word will only be one part of speech. Remember, there are 8 parts of speech. We have nouns, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, verbs, and we've talked about how there are linking verbs, action verbs, and helping verbs, but those are all verbs. Nouns, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, verbs, conjunctions, prepositions, and interjections. Remember, interjections are words like oh or wow. So every word in a sentence will be one of these parts of speech. The word off, for example, can be a preposition or an adverb depending on how it's used in a sentence, but within the same sentence it will only be one part of speech. So I could take each of these words and I could label it with a part of speech or put it on the diagram. So every word in a sentence will be one of these 8 parts of speech. And a preposition shows the relationship between a word in the sentence to another word in the sentence. If you're not sure if a word is a preposition or not, there are a couple of things you can do. First of all, you need to know that a preposition will always have an object. The object of the preposition is a word at the end of the prepositional phrase. So it's a word that follows a preposition, and it is always a noun or a pronoun. And you can say what after the preposition to find the object of the preposition. Off what? Swing. And the other words in a prepositional phrase will just be any modifiers that go with the object of the preposition. So a prepositional phrase starts with a preposition, ends with an object of the preposition, and may have some modifiers between them. So a preposition always, always, always has an object. Preposition always has an object. If it does not have an object, it is not functioning as a preposition in that sentence. Let's look at the word off in a different sentence. I jumped off. Oh. Well, that's not a preposition because it doesn't have an object. It doesn't show the relationship between a word in the sentence and its object, right? There's nothing after it to show the relationship between this and that word. There's nothing there. So it is not a preposition if it does not have an object. So often there are words like off that in some sentences are prepositions and in some sentences are adverbs. And here it's just an adverb. Jumped where? Jumped off. It's not a preposition because there is no object. Okay, so that's the first way to help you identify prepositions. Prepositions will always have objects. I went to school. To what? School. So school is the object of the preposition. Object of the preposition is always a noun or a pronoun. There it's a noun. So that's one thing that can help you. And the other thing that can help you is most prepositions can actually fit in the blank in this sentence. The mouse goes blank the box. The mouse goes blank the box. The mouse goes on the box. The mouse goes under the box. The mouse goes in the box. The mouse goes to the box. The mouse goes on top of the box. The mouse goes inside the box. The mouse goes outside the box. So most prepositions will fit into this blank because they're relationship words, right? So that's one test. Does it have an object? Does it fit in the blank? And the mouse goes blank the box. And there are just a few exceptions to this the mouse goes blank the box rule. And also remember, like on, for example, fits in this. Does that mean it's always a preposition though? No, in order to be a preposition, it has to have an object. Even if it fits in the sentence, if it does not have an object, it is not functioning as a preposition in that sentence. That just means it can be a preposition. If it fits in the blank, it can be a preposition. It won't always be a preposition because it has to have an object to be functioning as a preposition. We can say, he carried on. Carried where, carried how, on. There would be an adverb. So, in order to be a preposition, first it has to have an object. If it doesn't have an object, if it doesn't have anything after it, you don't have to go any further. But if it does have an object, see if it will fit in the blank in the sentence. The mouse goes blank the box. If it does not, it might be one of these prepositions. Let's see, where is that? There it is. Some prepositions won't fit into the mouse box sentence. There are 9 very common ones, which might seem like a lot to remember. To help you with this, here's a little memory trick. Remember, you may not be able to remember them, but Al does. You may not be able to remember the 9 prepositions that don't fit into the mouse box sentence, but Al does, and but Al does will help you remember what those prepositions are that don't fit into the mouse box sentence. They are but, until, than, don't get that confused with then, as, like, during, of, except, and since. So these are the words that are prepositions, or can be prepositions, depending on how they're used in the sentence, but don't fit into the mouse and box sentence. Something to remember about but is, this is not but used as a conjunction. This is but meaning except. Except. Everybody but me went on the trip. So there, but means except, and there it is a preposition. All right, so it's not the same way that but is used when it's connecting two independent clauses into a compound sentence, for example. Okay, so prepositions have to have objects, and many of them fit into the mouse went blank the box sentence. There are 9 common ones that don't. You may have a hard time remembering them, but Al does. And that will help you. That's a little memory trick to help you remember what they are. Now you might be asking yourself, well, okay, this is fine, but why do I care whether a word is a preposition or not? And the reason you care, the reason you need to know what a preposition is that the main parts of the sentence. So here are the 8 parts of speech right here. And then there are some main parts of the sentence: subject, predicate, direct object, indirect object, predicate nominative. We'll get to that a little bit later. We'll review that a little bit later. Predicate, adjective. Okay, so all of these parts of the sentence, the main parts of the sentence, all of these will be one of these 8 parts of speech. So I know that can be a little confusing, but just remember, every word in a sentence will be one of these 8 parts of speech. And then the sentence can also be divided into main parts of the sentence, and all of these parts of the sentence will be one of these parts of speech. For example, subjects are always what part of speech? See if you can think about that. Subjects are always what? Nouns and pronouns. The subject of the sentence, the simple subject, will always be a noun or a pronoun. The simple predicate will always be a verb. The direct object, which we'll review today, will always be a noun or a pronoun. Indirect object will always be a noun or a pronoun. A predicate nominative will always be a noun or a pronoun. Predicate adjective will always be an adjective. So the reason we need to know what prepositions are is that when you're thinking about how the parts of the sentence are functioning, you're trying to think, gosh, what is the subject of the sentence? Because I need to figure out if I have the right verb here, but I can't figure out if I have the right verb until I know what the subject is, because I need to make sure it agrees with the verb. So if I'm trying to identify the subject, I have to eliminate the prepositional phrase, because the prepositional phrase will never contain one of these main parts of the sentence. The subject will never be in the prepositional phrase. The predicate will never be in a prepositional phrase. A direct object, indirect object, predicate nominative, predicate adjective will never be found within a prepositional phrase. So one of the first things you do when you're kind of analyzing a sentence is you put that prepositional phrase in parentheses, and that will help you remember that your subject, simple predicate, direct object, indirect object, predicate nominative, and predicate adjective will not be found within those words. So that's why we need to know what prepositions are. Okay, so something else to know about prepositions and prepositional phrases is that the prepositional phrase functions like an adjective or an adverb in the sentence. So all the words of the prepositional phrase form a team, work together to modify something. So a prepositional phrase, the words in a prepositional phrase work together to modify something. So all these words together are sort of an adjective team or an adverb team, which makes sense if you think about how without an object, this word is an adverb, right? So really these are functioning similarly. It's just in this one, it's just one word that's functioning as an adverb. In this sentence, it's a group of words that are functioning as an adverb. So as we're diagramming sentences with prepositional phrases, this is what we're going to do. First, you're going to put the prepositional phrase in parentheses. And remember, if you're not sure what the prepositional phrase is, look for words that fit into the mouse goes blank the box, mouse goes on, under, in, or words that are in the memory trick, but, owl, does. And also on this, you have a handout that I'm going to put on Google Classroom that lists 50 common prepositions. If you just become familiar with these, you don't have to memorize them, but just read over them. It will help you. Pretty soon you'll get really good at recognizing prepositions. They'll just pop out at you. But familiarize yourself with this list. Just be aware that if they're on this list, remember, that doesn't mean they're always prepositions. It just means they can be. It still depends on how they're used in the sentence. If it doesn't have an object, like off here, it won't be a preposition. It has to have an object. Okay, so when we're diagramming sentences with prepositional phrases, we're going to put the prepositional phrase in parentheses. That will help us remember that none of these words will go on our baseline of the diagram, our main line that shows the main parts of the sentence. That's what this main line does. It shows those parts of the sentence that we talked about. Simple subject, simple predicate, and then we'll get to, if there's a direct object, it'll be on the main line. Predicate adjective and predicate nominative will be on the main line. So we've put in parentheses off the swing, and now we need to go ahead and start diagramming our sentence. So we're going to find the verb first. We're going to see if there's an action, and there is. Jumped. So jumped is my simple predicate. It is an action verb. Who jumped? I jumped. So I is the simple subject and it is a pronoun. Now, we can look at the rest of the sentence. We have off the swing. So remember, the words in a prepositional phrase work together to modify. So that means they're going to work together functioning as either an adjective or an adverb. So what does off the swing modify? It modifies jumped. Jumped where? Off the swing. So off the swing is going to be diagrammed like this under jumped. So we're going to write off here and label it PREP for preposition. We're going to put the object of the preposition on this line, and we're going to label it in for noun. And then we are going to put our modifier, the swing. Remember, the is an article adjective. It is always an adjective. A-N and the are the article adjective. So let's read this sentence. I jumped off the swing. So our sentence, now we have diagrammed all of our sentence. Let's do another one. So everybody look at that for a minute. Look at how to diagram a prepositional phrase. You have to figure out what these words are working together to modify. So let's diagram another one of these sentences. Our sentence here is, the boy in my class laughed. The boy in my class laughed. So first step, now from now on, when you're diagramming a sentence, or even just when you're doing an editing exercise and thinking about the sentence, you can go ahead and put the prepositional phrases in parentheses. That'll just help you kind of eliminate that as you're thinking about the main parts of the sentence and what words that you need to use. So the boy in my class laughed. So I see in, that's a common preposition. It goes in that mouse and box sentence, right? The mouse goes in the box. And it does have an object in what class. So I know the prepositional phrase starts with the preposition, ends with the object. And to find the object, we'll just say the preposition in what class. So there's my prepositional phrase. So now, let me see if there's another one, because there can be more than one in a sentence. There's not in this sentence. So now we're going to draw our baseline, and we're going to diagram this sentence. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure out how to diagram this sentence. All right, let's talk about this one. So you should have put laughed as the simple predicate. It is an action verb. You should have put boy as the simple subject, and it is a noun. And now we can add our modifiers. The is an article adjective, modifying boy, the boy. In my class. What is in my class laughed? Or what is in my class modify? It doesn't say the boy laughed in my class. There it would modify laughed. Left where in my class? It's the boy in my class. So it modifies boy. So here is our prepositional phrase. In class. So we have in as the preposition, class is the object of the preposition. It's a noun. Remember, the object of the preposition will always be a noun or a pronoun. And then my here is an adjective. It's a possessive pronoun used as an adjective, but it's functioning as an adjective, so we're going to call it an adjective. So now we can read the sentence and make sure we have all the parts of the sentence. The boy in my class laughed. And that is how you diagram prepositional phrases. Prepositional phrases will become more important as we very soon get to pronoun usage and whether to use I or me, for example, because you can only use I or me as the object of the preposition. So in order to decide on that, you have to know that it's an object of the preposition. So there's another reason that we need to know what prepositional phrases are. Okay, so let's move on now to talking a little bit about direct objects and indirect objects. So a direct object, and these notes will go on Google Classroom. If you were in my class last year, you'll already have this in your binder. If not, you can print it and put it in the grammar notes section. A direct object is a noun or a pronoun that receives the action of the verb or shows the result of the action. A direct object tells what or whom after an action verb. To find the direct object, you must find the subject and verb, then you simply say the subject, say the verb, and ask what. The answer will be a noun or a pronoun, and it is called the direct object. Direct object will always be a noun or a pronoun. So let's look at this sentence. My best friend had a birthday party today. Friend had what? Party. Party is the direct object. Okay, so let's look at some sentences with a direct object. First, you need to know that if you have a sentence with an action verb, I love cake. I love cake. If you have a sentence with an action verb, you might have a direct object. So if you see an action verb, always ask what after it to see if there's a direct object. So let's go ahead and diagram this sentence. In fact, I'm going to add a prepositional phrase in here too to give us more practice with that. I love cake at parties. Or let's see, let me get a different one. I love cake in the morning. Let's do that one. I love cake in the morning. Okay. So let's look at the sentence. First step is always to put the prepositional phrase in parentheses. In is a very common preposition. Mouse goes in the box and it has an object in what? In morning. So in the morning is a prepositional phrase there. So now we can identify our simple predicate and our simple subject. Love is our simple predicate. It's an action verb. I is our simple subject. It's a pronoun. Okay, so now when you have an action verb, always ask yourself if there is a direct object after it. Not all sentences with action verbs will have a direct object. I could say, I ran. Ran what? There's nothing after it. There's no direct object. I ran a race. Ran what? Race. Ah, there is a direct object there. Okay, so if you have an action verb, you might have a direct object. So let's see. I love what? Cake. Yes, cake is our direct object. Direct object always has to be a noun or a pronoun. Is cake a noun or a pronoun? Yes, it's a noun. Love what? Love cake. It is definitely a direct object. So to diagram a direct object, you draw another line, but this line does not go through. See, this line between the subject and predicate goes all the way through the line because really what this line is doing is dividing this diagram in half. We've got everything on this side is the complete subject, right? We've got our simple subject and any modifiers. Everything on this side is the complete predicate. We've got our simple predicate and any modifiers. Direct object is part of the simple predicate. I love, and that's why the line doesn't go all the way through to divide it. I love cake. So we're going to write cake on the line. We're going to put D-O because it's a main part of the sentence. We're going to label it under the line. And we are going to label on top with a noun. I love cake. Now, in the morning, this prepositional phrase, remember, is acting as a team to modify a word in the sentence. So let's see, what does it modify? I love cake in the morning. It modifies love. Love when? In the morning. So we're going to write in, P-R-E-P for preposition. Morning is our object of the preposition, and it's a noun, and then the, or the, is an adjective. Cake in the morning. Okay, so that is our diagram. That is how we diagram direct objects. Now, I want to talk to you for just a minute about indirect objects. An indirect object, and this is on your notes, is a noun or a pronoun that comes between the action verb and the direct object and tells to or for what or whom the action of the verb is being done. That sounds complicated, but it's really simple. I'll show it to you in just a minute. A sentence cannot have an indirect object unless it has a direct object. Direct objects and indirect objects are sometimes referred to as complements because they complete the meaning of the action verb. To find the indirect object, find the subject, predicate, and direct object, and simply say the subject, say the verb, say the direct object, and ask to or for what or whom. The answer will be a noun or a pronoun and is called the indirect object. Like the direct object, the indirect object will always be a noun or a pronoun. So example, I gave my friend a present. So if you had this sentence, you're going to identify the subject I, the predicate gave what? Friend, or sorry, didn't give my friend. See how easy it is to mess that up there. I gave what? Present to whom or for whom? Friend. So I gave what? Present. Present is the direct object. It's what's being given. It is what is receiving the action of the verb. So I gave my friend a present. Gave what? Present. So present is the direct object. Gave present to or for whom? Friend. So friend is the indirect object. Diagramming an indirect object, you actually diagram it exactly like a prepositional phrase, except without a preposition there. So let's diagram that sentence. I gave my friend a present. I gave my friend a present. There are no prepositions in this sentence. That's where we start, so we don't have to worry about that. So let's go ahead and make our baseline. Gave is an action verb. It is the simple predicate. I is a simple subject. It is a pronoun. Gave, then we see if we can find the direct object. Gave what? Present. So present is the direct object. Put D-O under it, right? And noun. And then you say, I gave present to or for whom? Friend. So friend is the indirect object, and it's going to go here under the verb because what it really is like, what an indirect object is really like, it's like an object of the preposition without a preposition. Because we might say, I gave a present to my friend, right? And an indirect object is just like when you're missing the to or the for. So you just write friend, it's the indirect object. We're going to put IO underneath it, and it's a noun. All indirect objects will be a noun or a pronoun. Now we can add our modifiers. I gave my friend, my is an adjective. A is an adjective. A and in the are always adjectives. So let's look at our sentence. I gave my friend a present. So we have a direct object and an indirect object. So just to review, if you have an action verb, you might have a direct object, not always, but ask yourself what after the verb. Gave what? Present. If you have a direct object, you might, but not always, have an indirect object. This sentence could have just said, I gave a present. So do you see how direct objects don't always have indirect objects? So if you have an action verb, you might have a direct object. If you have a direct object, you might have an indirect object. You will never have a direct object without an action verb. You will never have an indirect object without a direct object. And we will review this more, and this is also on your notes. But we are going to stop there for now because I think my recording time is about to run up here. So go ahead and print out those handouts that you will see on Google Classroom so that you can be aware of how to diagram direct and indirect objects and what they are. There's one other thing that I'm putting on Google Classroom for you, and that is the common irregular verbs, the principal parts of the verbs, the conjugation of the principal parts of the verbs. And we will actually talk about that a little more later. But the principal parts of the verb are just the main parts of the verb. And we can conjugate those like the word bring. Right now I bring. Yesterday I brought. I have brought. And we will actually probably talk about that more. I might have to make another video because I intended to talk about that more with you actually today. So I'll actually come back and make another video and put that on there as well that talks about the principal parts of the verb.